welcome to LifeChoices show. I'm Tina McCormick, that's my co-host Mary Broke, and our guest, Christina Brooks. We would like to talk about travel today, and we don't want to talk about trips to the grocery store, or even though a trip to Target late in the evening can be very therapeutic, we are going to talk about trips that involve packing a bag and leaving our home. And our guest, Christina, is a world traveler. She has been all over the place, alone and with her family. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you.
So what has been your last big trip?
My last big trip was last summer. I took the kids to Europe with my husband, and it was their first time in Europe, and it was just a wonderful trip. We weren't sure how it was going to go, but they were troopers. They were able to keep up with us and really enjoy what they were seeing. And the best part about it is I think that they really appreciated what they saw, and they'll remember it too, because they're at a really nice age for traveling. My oldest is 16, a daughter, and my second child is a boy, and he is, at that time 14, and then a son that was 12.
Perfect. And what did that do to you as a family, that experience, to share that?
The experience just brought us together because we spent the entire day together, not just like pieces of our day. We were, together the entire day, going to different places and being able to discuss what we were looking at. And if we weren't quite sure where we were going, we would figure out, okay, this is where we need to go. And they just enjoyed it very much the way I did.
And it's
my
the
husband.
perfect age to share such a trip.
Yes.
Right? Because you're going to sites, you're learning about history, you're learning about these new cultures, and your children probably really reacted to these experiences.
They did.
Right?
We talked a lot about it, and the nice thing is that even after coming home, we still talk about our trip, and that's what's I think really important to do, is not just forget about it and never bring it up again. I try to bring it up a lot when we have our family dinners together. I ask them questions to see if they'll remember the name of a bridge or a church and what was in that cathedral, or who painted a certain painting, because I want them to remember everything, because I know with time they could easily forget.
So true. Where did you go, Christina?
Well, my father's from Italy,
Oh, nice.
and so I wanted them to see Italy as their first country in Europe. Because it's part of their heritage. So we saw Italy. We also went to France, and we went to England, and yes.
So you were there a while. How long did you travel for?
For almost a month.
Wow, that's really
So
wonderful.
the kids were really looking forward to it beforehand. When we were planning the trip, I made sure that the kids read a lot about where we were going, so that had some background, and then would talk about it before, so that they would not just see something for the first time and not know any history about it. So I try to really bring it up always as a part of the conversation at dinner time or lunchtime. And then finally the day came, and it was surprising to see how great it was.
They reacted.
They really reacted well.
recognized it, right? They recognized. So did you go to cities with a lot of art and architecture, obviously, things that they had to learn about?
Yes, and I thought that after they saw maybe 3 churches in Italy, that would be enough. But they never complained about it. They just kept wanting to see more and more.
Wow.
And it was great. And they asked a lot of questions, and if we didn't know always the answer, we would look it up, because we had different books with us, and we had tour guides to help us out.
So you had it was almost like an educational. You treated it as an educational opportunity for them.
Yeah, I wanted to take full advantage of it. So we got up very early in the morning, and then we always came back to the hotel very late too. So we were out the entire day. So I would highly recommend comfortable sneakers or shoes.
Also, what is so important, and that's something you can experience with older children, is a certain attitude that you should have about travel, so that you don't just go as a tourist with preconceived ideas of what you think you're going to see, because then you're not going to see anything new, right? It's about an openness.
Yes.
And to go without prejudice and misconceptions, and really to open yourself up to that new experience, right? And that's the difference between a tourist and a traveler, really, to actually really see and absorb.
Yes.
While, tourists might just go.
Tourists might go and just have fun and eat and drink, but not sort of absorb the culture too. I think that's what you're saying.
Because one of my kids was very interested in which hotel we were going to stay at.
Right.
He wanted to make sure that the hotel had a pool and like a ping pong table, and what would the view be like, because that's what he's used to when we've gone to resorts. But I told him, no, this is a very different kind of trip, and the pool I'm not interested in at all, because you're not going to spend any time at the pool. There'll be no time, really. Right. And we don't need to be close to the beach, because we're not going to be spending time
It was an entirely
relaxing.
new kind of trip.
Yes, very, very different. So, he understands that now for the future, that there's all kinds of trips, and this was a different kind of trip.
Right.
Not just to relax.
And a lot, I think, also when you do travel to a new country, is about food, right? Tasting new food and not to be afraid, not to seek out the next McDonald's or Hard Rock Cafe, but to really, you experience a place through smell and taste.
And I knew they'd love the food in Italy, because they love
Italian
food. That's pretty easy. That was easy. No problem there.
You don't have to eat like grilled fish head or weird things like in some Asian countries or Latin America or Africa.
French can be
frog
acquired taste.
Yeah.
They like the French food.
They love the French food too. They really love the French food, the pastries and the little cafes. I think what was surprising to them more than anything were the portions, because they're used to such big portions here that they were like, and even myself, because I get so used to them being really big. They were surprised that they were just so much smaller. And I said, it's just a matter of perspective. It's what you're used to. That's all. Because this is normal to them, and this is an entree for one person.
Right. It should be enough.
And it really should be enough. Yeah.
There's a wonderful quote by G.K. Chesterton that I'm going to read about travel. He wrote, "The whole object of travel is not to set foot on a foreign land. It is at last to set foot on one's own country as a foreign land." So the idea being that when you come back from such a trip, you actually see your own home in a completely new way. And just being at home and never leaving, of course, makes us very accustomed to everything and tired, and we stop doing anything really consciously, perhaps, or appreciating things. So then coming back to our home, right? I love to travel just as much as you do, and I've traveled quite a bit. But it's always also nice to come back home and to come to the familiar. Right?
Sometimes that's the best part of a trip, is coming home.
Right. Sometimes it is, and I think especially if you're, especially for stay-at-home moms, actually, we do tend to get into the whole routine and the rut of things, right? And sometimes we just need that little break and that new, fresh perspective, right? To get back into it
your home is.
With energy and then especially if you can travel with your family together, it's wonderful to share that and then bring that back with you, and you can keep talking about those experiences. It's incredibly enriching.
I think that's true. I remember going as a 20-year-old on my junior year abroad in college, and I still think of that as one of the best experiences I've ever had. I always recommend that. But I remember at the end of it, having gone to many countries and lived away, that the lesson was just what you said, is that you appreciate your own home. You really appreciated the United States so much after being in Europe for a whole year. Think, wow, we have so much here. We have so many luxuries in a way, but also a wonderful culture of our own. But I agree. I think the newness of going somewhere helps you, it gives you a shot in the arm. A new place gives you a shot in the arm. Like, as you say, routine can creep into any life and make you tired, make you more tired than you need to be.
Yes, and perhaps sometimes it also helps us to be a little less rigid in our lives at home, right? Where we can be very judgmental of people and things, but then it can kind of diminish our minds a little bit if we don't open up and look at other people's lives and see, that there are many good things in other ways of living, and I think that it helps us even just to at home just be happier with things and more tolerant
Yeah.
of situations.
And there's many different ways of doing the same thing. And it's not that one way is better than another way, that we can really learn from other cultures,
That's
you know,
right.
because I think sometimes if you don't really go abroad, you don't travel, you feel like really there's just one way and this is the way, or the
American
best way,
Right.
as the American way.
Yeah.
And it's nice to give children the different perspectives during their formative years, so it
Sure.
becomes a part of them, and they realize that just by seeing a piece of the world, wow, just think of the other pieces of the world, how
Yes.
different they must be and interesting, and there's many ways to celebrate the same thing, for example, whatever it may be, or to just to be with
eat
the
a
family.
meal.
And sometimes it's even better than the way that they know here. So there's much to be learned when they travel.
Right.
And you spent a whole year in Colombia with your children.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did, and I was really fortunate because my parents were fabulous parents. Let me say, they were just outstanding. I'm very lucky. They've been married for more than 50 years,
Wow.
and they brought me and my 3 brothers to Colombia every summer, where my mother's from.
Oh, your mother's from Colombia.
To enjoy the culture and to not only learn the culture, but to become closer with our family, the extended family.
Wonderful.
So we'd have a beautiful relationship with my
Yeah.
grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. And so we'd spend the entire summer there, just about every summer.
That's great.
And when I was in middle school, my parents wanted me to actually go to school there and learn what it's like to have an education abroad and in her country, not just abroad, and to be fluent in Spanish, a useful language and a beautiful language. So I was very, very lucky, and my brothers as well, to be able to experience that during our formative years, because I feel like it's part of my personality, a lot of the Colombian way, because I wasn't fully grown yet. I was just a young child, so I definitely have one foot in Colombia and one foot here.
That's great. What year was that? What, in school? How old
I
were
was
you?
in 7th grade, and so I have a brother that's a little bit older and 2 younger brothers. And then my first job out of college was in Colombia. I wanted it to be in Colombia because I wanted to be with my grandparents. I knew I'd always be able to find a job eventually, but my grandparents weren't always going to be there, so I wanted to enjoy them.
That's wonderful.
So right after I graduated from a college here in the U.S., I went back to Colombia again.
That's great.
So it was great.
Well, actually, that's also a wonderful way to experience a different country if you're visiting actual relatives or friends who are living in that country, right?
Yes.
It gives you a true perspective of life there.
Right.
And it's easier then to actually be the traveler, not just the tourist, right?
And
To
if you go to
really-
school, you can make a lot of friends
Yes.
at that school,
Yes,
which is
right,
fabulous.
right.
That's
So
true.
that is probably the
Natives.
best experience of a new country. Of course, not everybody is that lucky to be able to do that.
To have family in other countries.
Right, but still, I think
Yeah.
if you leave your home, it'll benefit you in many different ways.
Yeah,
And-
however way you can. Even if you
Yes.
can't go abroad for a year, not everybody can.
Right.
But even for the summer or for a week or two.
Yes, just putting yourself into a new place. I read something about also the personal experience of traveling, so not necessarily just as a family, but personally, it makes you become a child again, especially if you go to a
that's a great
place
idea.
that's very, very different, where you perhaps can't speak the language, where everything is new, people might drive on the other side of the road, things like that. And in a way, that's how a child experiences life, right?
Right.
Suddenly you are aware of everything. And I think that's what I love most about traveling, is the intensity of that experience, where you have to plan your day carefully. You have to plan your next meal carefully. Every little decision you make through the day counts. And you're a little vulnerable, and so you really are very conscious
Yes.
of everything.
Right, you're not just
you're not just
walking
kind of
around.
going through the day, keeping up with your schedule.
Right.
But you're really called to being very conscious.
Yeah.
So and that's a wonderful experience.
And it's nice how you can communicate with somebody else, even if you don't speak the language. You can actually become
Yes.
friends with someone, and somehow it works because you're just
Yes.
making it work,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yes,
okay.
just through the sign language and the
There is
smile.
this universality.
Yeah, I can figure it out somehow.
It's
Yes,
wonderful.
Right.
So what kind of advice would you have for somebody maybe who looks at your life and says, wow, that's great, she's able to go to Europe for a month or Colombia for a year, but maybe they don't have the means. Are there any creative ways that either of you know of? where
Well,
you can
I would
travel?
set the goal. Like, just think of where is it that you want to go and roughly when. And just decide that's something you definitely want to do. And then think, okay, now how am I going to do it? How can I make it work? And so if you're working, when do you have vacation? How long, I don't know, everybody's vacations are different, but how long is your vacation? And do you know anybody in that country? And if you're going to go with children, how are the schools? What kind of school would you want your child to go to? And the cost, of course, that's important too. And the curriculum, how would it transfer over? It depends on the age of the child too. Like if you're going to pull them out, you want to make sure when they do come back to their school, they're going to be okay, not completely lost. So there's a lot of different factors you have to think about.
I guess you're right. And you must have stayed with your grandparents when you were in the 7th grade, right? Or did you stay with the family?
I did. So that made it so much easier because I had family there. So when you don't have family, it gets a little bit trickier. You might have friends, because of course to stay in a hotel for that amount of time is not
school,
easy for
But
most
even
people.
if you can't leave the country, right? There are many wonderful destinations in America, especially also as a family, right? To visit New York or DC.
There's so much to see here.
Or you know, the southern states, and it's all also about trying new food, right? And doing
the different
doing
countries.
And summer camps are great. There's so many wonderful summer camps here to go to, and there's a lot to see and do.
A different life.
There is, I think, though, I mean, there can also be a negative impulse to travel, and I know people who do just travel just to get away, or I don't know, they're in search of something. And then it can be a kind of travel that's perhaps not as enriching, right? If you're just trying to escape from something. Again, I would like to mention G.K. Chesterton, who gives an example of if you are snowed in your street, suddenly you have the wildest world in front of you because you're dealing with your neighbors. And that is really the whole canvas of human existence and personality, which is way more adventurous than any country you might visit. For some people, perhaps that would mean especially that they want to escape, because that's sometimes the biggest challenge is your own community. So you have to make sure you are leaving for the right reasons, to actually come back and face reality, right? It cannot just be an escape. And there's a beautiful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Though we travel the world over to find the beautiful, we must carry it with us or we find it not. So again, it's the right approach. I mean, you have to be happy inside and go on your trip consciously, not just, I'm just going to go. Although sometimes you might want to have, some sunshine, especially if you're living in this weather. I can understand. That's another kind of escape. I think that's quite legitimate.
Yeah, escape to this warm weather. That's right.
Yeah, especially after this winter that we had.
Right.
Yes.
It seems like it's
right. But I mean, but traveling just by itself is not going to enrich your life or make you happy if you don't have the right attitude.
Yes.
And you are a little bit conscious of what you want from your trip.
A lot of times traveling makes you learn about yourself too, not just other people, because you've never been in that situation before, so you don't always know how you're going to react. But I really think that when I travel, I don't just learn from other people, I also learn from myself, like, wow, I didn't know I had that in me, or I didn't know that I was capable, or
on the negative side, you lose patience easily, or
whatever.
Yeah, you're out of your
however
comfort
it may
zone.
be.
Yes. Things work differently in other countries,
right?
Right. If you,
so you have to figure out a way to make it work.
Yes, right. It's
there's a work aspect to traveling. There's a work aspect to it.
Yes.
But I think in general it is a very positive thing. I keep thinking of this song from Anything Goes, that there's no cure like travel.
Oh.
Do you know the song? It's from a musical. That it just enriches you. It's a cure, in a sense.
Yes.
The cure to, like you said, the blues, the winter blues, but it also can be a cure to, I don't know, just...
Well, I think that many women and women who are at home with their children feel a great reluctance to leave. even for a day. It could be visiting a friend just for a day, for 2 nights. And then, they have to, of course, have their husband agree with it. But by the way, I've also heard from many mothers that's the best thing they've ever done to their husband is leave him alone with the children for a couple of days, so they really understand what it's like.
Full responsibility.
But I think women have to have that courage if it's possible that they go away for a day. Sometimes they need that break.
Why do you think it is that they don't want to leave? What reasons do they give?
I think often it's anxiety also, right? I mean,
yes, and also just
attachment.
missing them and feeling guilty maybe, and just feeling like nobody can do it the way you can do it, as if the way you do it is the only way that it can be done. You realize that there's so many other ways that it can be done, and not only that though, sometimes even better, and it's probably better for the child to be more flexible also. It can be good for the child to see that, okay, it's okay the other way. When my dad's doing it.
And sometimes it's just better for the child to have the mother have a little break.
Yes, because then you come back rested.
Talking of, high levels of tolerance.
In a better mood. Yes, that's right.
Yes. So I'd actually traveled for the first time without my children last year.
With me?
With Mary, we went to Italy for a week. And it just suddenly was possible for me to do that. And I had never before thought I could ever leave my children.
And it was great,
at all.
Right?
But then somehow I was at that point where I felt, no, this is something I really now need to do. I need to have this experience, and it's for their sake also. And it was fantastic. And they survived, and I was really happy to see them again. And they were really happy to see me.
And now you need to do it again.
And your relationship has changed for the better.
Yes.
But so it is important. So I think women shouldn't feel that they are chained. It's because that's not healthy. They have to feel that it's okay. Just take a day, visit a friend, visit a relative.
Yeah, and the kids want to see you happy.
Yes.
In the end, they just want a mom and hopefully a dad too that's very happy in their situation. So to have you home and wanting to be away is not healthy.
Right.
It's just better to, if you really want to travel, then to travel, to take that break.
Right. And mentioning husbands, it can also be good sometimes for the mother and father together to take a weekend and go somewhere, if it's at all possible.
Yes.
If you have some kind of situation at home with parents who can be with your children, or you have friends.
Babysitter.
Yes, but that is helpful.
And then there's the other side of people that are always traveling and leaving their children too.
Well, that's another story.
Yeah,
yes.
That would be.
No, but again, talking of marriage, it can be very important for a marriage to. For the couple to go away, because everybody is so focused on the children or the job, and sometimes spouses stop talking to one another, or they don't really have
that can happen easily.
Shared experiences, right? And that can be a big challenge for the marriage. So
that's right.
It is really nice to have a break. Everybody needs a break, no matter who you are, whether you're married or not, whether you have children or you don't. Right. Everybody needs a little bit of time for themselves, and however that may be, I think everyone should try to just find it within themselves and do it. If they need a break, to take that break.
And as you say, it can be anything from a trip to the Cape. Here we're only 30 miles.
Or an afternoon alone, or an afternoon with a friend, or you know, whatever you want to do. It's just nice to be alone a little bit, just to get recalibrated.
I like that word. That's a great word.
And you have another big trip ahead for the summer,
summer.
Well, because we went to Europe last summer, I'm planning on taking the kids to a summer camp in Colombia so they can practice their Spanish this summer. So that's the plan so far. And
you'll be in Colombia?
We'll be in Colombia.
For a month or so.
Because I figured instead of putting them in camps here where they can't practice their Spanish, I may as well put them in a camp there where they are going to hopefully speak in Spanish most of the time.
That's wonderful.
And then I'd like them to see a little bit more of Colombia, but by the coast this time. They've never been to Cartagena, and I would like to show them Cartagena.
That's wonderful that you're doing that.
It's really beautiful.
We've talked a lot in this show about traditions and food traditions and holiday traditions, right? And of course, in America, all of those traditions really, definitely most, come from abroad, come from other countries, right? So actually we are already living in a country where we are benefiting from all these different traditions and cultures. So that too is a way to think about other places. Take your children to an ethnic restaurant.
That's an idea.
To a Chinese restaurant or to an Indian restaurant. That you can find anything.
Yes. Is there some Colombian culture here in Massachusetts?
I think there must be, definitely. I mean, I don't see it most of the time because where I live, I don't know many Colombians. But I'm sure there's plenty of Latino restaurants, and there's music. If you want music, there's places you can go and dance. I haven't been to those places, but here in Massachusetts, there's everything. You can find anything you want here.
Right, that's true.
Which is wonderful. It's a great place to live.
And you could actually, if you take your children to a restaurant like that, you can turn it into a whole day experience. You can talk about the country.
Right.
I don't know.
Dedicate a day to the Colombia.
You could
or not necessarily just Colombia, many
Latin
countries,
America.
Latin America. Yep.
Yes.
It's true. I mean, the kids, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was growing up, our geography lessons weren't so great. I mean, sometimes kids just aren't aware of what the world around them. Having the little globe to show them, here is South America, and here's what the language they speak. This is the language they speak. This is their tradition and culture.
Which can be very abstract for children.
Yes, unless you bring it down to...
Right, you can, if they can have food, a different taste, or you can show them artifacts. And
movies.
That goes a long way.
There's a lot out there now.
Then, of course, there are other aspects of travel with the family, and I'm thinking now of road trips with small children.
Well, I have to tell you, I can't imagine.
Talk about patience. You need a lot of patience for a road trip.
It might sometimes be better just to stay at home.
Yes. You need a vacation from that vacation, I think, afterwards.
Well, how did it go? Well, your kids are young, but you've traveled abroad a lot with your little ones. I mean, you've gone to Europe when they were all babies, and I'm amazed.
Yes, it's hard. Well, the jet lag is hard.
But even carrying the bags. I have 5 kids in tow. How do you do that?
Well, you have to realize it's a huge undertaking. You have 20 suitcases. Seriously.
It's a lot of work just to get there.
Right, just to get on the plane, out of the car, into the airport.
It's really crazy. But then you have to embrace the whole thing as an adventure. And it starts when you start packing the suitcases.
Yeah, you get them excited and help you.
Yeah, so you have to, you can't just see then the trip as a destination, but it's a whole process, and it's also the anticipation.
Yes,
that's fun.
Yes, and I think
that's part of the fun.
In any trip,
is looking forward to
make
it.
sure you plan some time just for anticipation. Because, you could have horrible weather, it might rain all day, and you want to go to the beach if you're somewhere. So you never know what it's really going to be like. Yeah. But you can look forward to it and plan it properly.
It's great for kids. They really love it, right? The kids love the traveling.
And now that my kids are older, I want them to not only plan like by talking to me and looking at books, but they can start working a little bit too and saving up.
Right.
They can't pay for all of it perhaps because I know it gets pretty expensive, but I want them to feel what it's like to set a goal, to have a goal and meet that goal and work slowly towards it. So I'm saying to them now pretty much for their camp, a percentage of whatever they make, I want it to go into their summer camp fund for Colombia.
Great.
Because they certainly won't be able to pay for all of it, but I just want them to feel like they earned it.
It's really theirs too.
And it's theirs, and they can feel that pride. Because they're old enough to have little jobs here and there.
That's wonderful.
And my daughter babysits, and my son caddies a little bit at a golf club close to the house, and he works at an after-school. It's not really a daycare, but it's where kids go after school when their parents work, and they play. And so basically they're elementary-age children. And he loves it. It's just once a week. He walks there. It's like a block away from my house, and he walks home. And he can choose any day he wants after school. And it's great because pretty much they're paying him to play basketball, baseball, all the stuff that he'd be doing anyways and not getting paid.
And you can put the money towards a trip.
And yes, and then he's making some money for playing with kids that he'd normally play with probably anyhow.
That's wonderful.
Yes, and my other son, the youngest, Michael, he takes out some trash on Sundays, and he feels really proud of that because there's 2 elderly people in my neighborhood, and they're not able to do that. So
he helps.
So he feels like he's helping people weekly.
That's wonderful.
And he has a responsibility.
So actually one could turn a trip like that into a real family project project also in terms of preparation, right? You could decide as a family, okay, we want to visit, even if it's Washington, D.C., or we want to spend a weekend in New York City, and we're going to create a travel fund, and we're all going to work towards that.
Yes,
right?
and what it's like to take a percentage out of the money that you make towards the trip. So they learn like financial planning. How do you start at a young age? Yes,
that's a great
budgeting.
lesson.
Because of course, my kids, they want to take all the money immediately and spend it right away. And that's pretty much what they do normally. But I'm trying to teach them that that you have to have goals, and sometimes you have not just one goal, but several. And if you're making this amount of money, and you want to hopefully reach that goal by a certain amount of time, and this is the amount of money you're making, how much do you have to set aside so that you can actually meet that goal by that date?
Yes.
Because they know when we're leaving and how much money they have to put aside. So
and they learn that the importance of experience, and that you can create wonderful experiences. Right?
Yes.
It's not just that they want to save up money for whatever, an electronic game, or but it's actually an experience, and that's much more enriching than having just another game, right, or something material.
And it feels so much different when you've earned it, that you just aren't always getting things handed to you.
Right.
I think it's important for them. They should feel good about working, and it's wonderful. If you're able to work, why not? To be a part of it. So.
I wanted to talk very briefly about my experience last summer. I took my two oldest boys, who then were 9 and 11, to Spain. And I took them on a pilgrimage where we had to walk 5 full days, about 16 miles per day.
Wow.
And it was physically very demanding. It might not sound like it, but at the end of the day, you were very, very exhausted.
And they were, heat too.
And they were,
I'm sure
they were relatively young to do that. And I was really so proud of them, how they managed to do that, really without complaints. And and we had all kinds of long conversations about all kinds of things. And my younger boy, who was 9, he wanted to hold my hand almost all the time, and he wanted to talk all the time. So it was 8 hours of walking. So they did have iPods. So sometimes I had to say, you know what, let's just listen to some music now.
Time for a break.
But it was a wonderful way for me to connect with them, and just to get to where we would really get to know each other in a way that's not really so easy to do when you're at home, right? Because you have these new experiences together, and they want to do that trip again. They're telling me now, asking me, can we please do that again? Which makes wonderful. Which is wonderful for me, knowing, okay, I gave them this experience, and it wasn't only forced, but they actually really benefited. And
they're ready to do it again, huh? Because you told me they were mad at you for all the long trips.
Every single day, by the end of our torturous walk, they would start cursing at me and say, I hate you, Mom.
Their legs hurt.
Yes, it got very tiring, but we managed, and they I think were proud too. And people's reaction to them telling them what they had done was always, wow, you did that, that's amazing.
So that's great.
That's a lot of miles.
Yes.
Yeah,
wow.
It sure is.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, so sometimes a trip will also mean challenging ourselves.
Physically challenging.
Physically challenging, right?
Yeah. So. You can stay in the fancy hotels, or you can stay in the hostels, right? I mean, with all the the pilgrims.
Yes. I used to stay in hostels when I was in college. I would go to Europe, and it was great staying in the pensiones or hostels. You meet so many students,
right?
And it's just
really,
so great. You
don't
need very much.
There.
Yeah.
No.
You don't need much at all. You can just enjoy. It's so nice not to plan, to just go.
Right.
You know, to just feel like, okay, I have all this time, and I've got my map, my backpack, and I'm all set.
My Eurail pass.
Yeah, my Eurail pass, and I can go anywhere. It's so easy to travel around Europe. It's simple.
Yes, trains everywhere.
Go from one country to another, because the countries aren't so big. A lot of them aren't that big. So, it's just easy. So wonderful. It's a great thing to do, especially as a college student too.
I loved that
because they have a lot of great deals for college kids.
They sure do. And the exchange programs, you alluded to it, but even if you don't pay, for a child to stay in a camp or whatever, It seems to me that I know people with young children who exchange lodging. So they'll take one child for a year, and then the following year, their child will go to the foreign country. So there's an understanding, either through just the schools themselves or through Rotary clubs or whatever, that there's going to be an exchange. In other words, we're going to host your child or a child, and someone's going to host our child. And you feel a sense of security, and then you're able to save a little bit of money because
that's a great way to do it too.
Yes,
that's wonderful.
That's
There's internships that you can take advantage of, and all kinds of ways to travel. So I just feel like you just have to have it in you.
Yes.
You know, make
a goal. I love that.
Make a goal.
Write it down.
And then just figure out how are you going to, you know, do
make
it.
it happen.
Work
That's
towards
what
that.
you want to do. Just work towards it and see what it is that you need so that you can meet your goal.
Good for you.
Okay, well, we're happy you joined us, and we hope that we inspired you to plan your own trip with your children, without them, with your husband, without your husband. But anyway, go see the world.
That's right.
Bye.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.
Hi, my name is Toby Burrell. I am president of the Medfield Lions Club. The Medfield Lions Club is one of 46,000 Lions clubs that have 1.3 million members worldwide. That makes the Lions the largest service club organization in the world. Where there's a Lions Club in the community, problems get smaller and communities get better. Locally, the Medfield Lions are involved in two primary missions. We raise money to benefit eye disease research, and we also raise money to benefit local Medfield charities. No doubt you've seen us in town wearing our distinctive yellow vests, raising money for eye disease research. Our single largest fundraiser each year is the Christmas tree sale. Every penny of the proceeds goes to charities such as the Medfield Food Cupboard, the Medfield Animal Shelter, and scholarships for graduating Medfield High School seniors. We sponsor the Seniors Luncheon at Christmas, as well as the Chowderfest contest each year. All the proceeds from these very popular events go to benefit the Council on Aging. Interested in volunteering? As a member of the Medfield Lions Club, you'll be joining a group of service-minded men and women who are doing local volunteer work to benefit Medfield right now. We are your friends, we are your neighbors, we are local Medfielders, and we would love to have you join us. For further information about membership, please call me, Toby Burrell, at 508-359-5210, or you can email me at tobster9@aol.com. Or check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Lions Clubs. Thank you.